this video I'm going to be working on the S4 style of Singerlight that happens to be mounted on a 1591 sewing machine. Now this S4 molded light, I believe, is Bakelite, and Singer made about 9 versions of this, and they were for various models. Depending on the model, they made different versions. Models 15, 66, 99, 127, and 128, and also one more, the 206K25. And the different versions had to do with how the light was mounted and whether it had a wire lead for connecting at the terminal, as this one does, or several of them had an actual long electrical cord with a plug to plug in, to the wall separately. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to take this light off. We're going to look at it. I'm going to inspect it. I know that from looking before that there's some bare wires down here. I'm going to see if those can be coated maybe or reused, or the condition of it. The switch itself is crisp and good. It's a little loose here. I believe that's the mounting bracket under here. I figured out how to put this all together and take it off. If you remember from one of my first videos, this came in pieces in the shipping box. And I'm going to look at replacing this wire lead, which means disassembling this and working with these threaded snap rings. And I'm even going to look at replacing it with an aftermarket light that's a copy. Aftermarket meaning this isn't made by Singer, it's made by whatever company in this style, and it's made to replace these light fixtures or add this style of light to one of the models I mentioned that didn't have a light, or the light was so broken it wasn't usable at all. So before I go much farther, I want to remind you, especially if you're new to my channel, down below the video on the timeline along the bottom, I break my videos into chapters now, and if you drag across that timeline, you'll see the chapters names and their start time, and you can skip around the video back and forth if there's something you're not interested in, or you want to come back at a different date and look at something again. So keep in mind that you can do that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is take this off. I'm going to plug it. I had it in to show you that the light works, and I'm going to take this off. Now you can undo, there's a couple of screws down here on the bottom that hold this little L bracket that mounts to the machine. So if you'd like to take those 2 screws out, you can pull the light fixture itself off of that bracket. I'm going to take the whole thing and the bracket off because I plan on trying that aftermarket light that I bought. My understanding was a lot of these machines came out before they had a light, or a light was optional. Okay, and so this little bracket is screwed into a hole in the body, so we need to remove this access cover that you would normally open to apply oil to certain places. And this has a thumb screw, just like the thumb screw on your presser bar. And I'll take that off. And I'll take the cover off. And now I can see there's a screw right here, and there's kind of a little recessed cutout in this smooth edge of the machine where the bracket mounts. So I want to go in there and take that screw out. Now I had this off before in one of my very first videos, and I thought it was, I don't know, something was odd about it, and I looked at the parts manual, and there's supposed to be a small fiber washer that goes on the back side of the bracket, between the bracket and the body. And I have no way of knowing what size that bracket or fiber washer is. But let me take out this little screw here so I don't lose it. It's just a small bugle head screw that holds that bracket onto the body. And see if I can get my spotlight here, flashlight. I want to show you there is this cutout here. And that's the difference of some of these, the different brackets. This has a certain bracket because it has this cut out or ground down space here where it mounts. And that's, I think, to help hold it from moving that way. Okay, so we have that off now, and I want to go ahead and I'm going to remove the wire lead from the terminal down here. And some of you may have seen this and you want to skip ahead. I took this terminal and the motor and the light off in one of the first videos so that I could work on the other parts of the machine. This has one long screw, mounting screw, that holds the wire terminal onto the body. So I will loosen that screw. I'll show that to you. Okay, put that with my others in the magnetic dish, and now I'm going to pull the wire terminal off of the machine and turn it around here. This is a pretty standard wire terminal. You see it on a lot of these black Singer machines where there's 3 terminations, 1, 2, 3. 1 is yellow, 2 is black, and 3 is red. And the wires have different colors, like you can kind of see this wire's yellow and it's on the yellow pin. Although the other wire from the light fixture is black, it does terminate on 3. So the wire terminations for the light on this machine are on 1 and 3. Now I'm going to post a slide here of the wiring diagram with colors for this. Just be about a 4 or 5 second slide. You can pause it if you want. You can come back to it. I'll chapter it. I'll mark it so that if you don't mark your wires and so forth, you'll have a reference for how to put them back on. In this case, I'm just going to remove these little Bakelite thumb screws. Aren't these cute? They have a brass insert with brass threads, but the gripping part is a Bakelite. And luckily for me, my yellow wire from the light is terminated right on top. So I'm going to take it off, and I'll put the thumb screw back on here, thumb nut, I guess this would be called a thumb nut, so I don't lose that. And then, sure enough, the other wire is terminated on number 3. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. Pull that off. Is this on the top too? It is. So it's, from what I could tell researching, this is the first 1591 I've done, and there is a lot of information about it, and there's several good videos too on YouTube if you want to search around. I'm sure that there's people that have more experience with this than I do, so if you don't get what you need from my video, feel free to research around a little bit. But you can see here that this stranded wire, some of the insulation has cracked off, completely off. Okay, and this one, the insulation has cracked, and my understanding was that the wire is probably shot, but I don't know if it's cracked all the way or if it's just where it's exposed out of the sheath. You have to remember, when these machines were made, plastics were kind of new, and vinyls, and a lot of it was a rubber type of coating, some natural rubber, some synthetic. But anyway, I have a close-up picture of this wire so you can see. Okay, so that's the first concern. And I'm curious to see, if I strip back this sheath, will I be able to remove this broken coating and use like some liquid electrical tape that you brush on, and it dries and it gives a waterproof non-conductive coating, and maybe that's all I'm going to have to do. I really like these terminal rings that Singer used. I've never been able to find anything like them, where they've twisted this wire that looks like number 18 AWG, American Wire Gauge, and into a circle, and I think this is a 2-part piece that's crimped on, or clamped on. I tried to take one of them apart and it just ruins it. I really like them though. It's very compact and stuff. Anyway, that's one of the things that I am going to be looking at. But while I'm here, I thought I would show you this aftermarket light I found. Okay, and I found I don't know, a half dozen or more sellers on the internet that sell this light, and it's called B428 is what they call it. Singer 1588, 90, 1530, and the 27 or 127. So it's really not made for this 1591, and the reason being is the bracket. I bought it from Sewing Machines Plus because they had it for $13, and everybody else it was $26. And it said new, and they're a big outfit, but when I got it, the box was pretty beat up, and you know, it was packed well to ship, but the box itself, the manufacturer put it in, was pretty beat up. So I don't know if this was a return that they sold and that's why it was half price, or they just have a few and they wanted to get rid of them. But this this light is definitely for the models that I mentioned. The 1588, 1590, 1530, and the 27. And because those machines didn't have this little ground out spot here. And the original version of this Singerlight, this wasn't solid. It was just a ring. The centerpiece was all cut out. But the way this is made is very simple, where you just put it here and then put the cover over it, and it has these little kind of bent ears that stabilize on the protrusion up here. See, like that, and then you tighten the thumb nut, and that's going to hold it in place. And instead of turning, you know, with a big knob like that, it does turn. It's got a nice crisp clip. There's some smudging in the molding here. The molding here on the ventilation is a little bit rough. It doesn't have a label on it, you know, that says Singer, but it's a very close reproduction, really. See, and the other versions would have different types of brackets depending on the model. Okay, so we can see that. See if I can put this up here, and when I put the plate over it, it all fits. Okay, it's going to be possible to do this, but man, you got to really crank down on this thumb screw now, because before, the bracket on the original light supports the weight in that cutout, and this is smooth, so you have to tighten this a little harder than you think. Okay, now this has a cord. I don't know what it is, maybe 20 inches long or so, because some of those models, the power cord from the wall to the terminal had a little outlet, like two space outlet that you could plug in. Okay, some of the other versions of this light, they have like a 8-foot or 10-foot cord to go all the way to the wall. So you could use an extension cord on this and be done. If you don't have a light, just put this on, tighten it down, run this with an extension cord to your outlet, and plug it in. I'll show you here, and there you go. You have a light on your machine, or you've replaced a broken up smash light. Now if you wanted, you could also cut this shorter, strip it, and put wire terminals on it, and you could wire it back down in the way the original one, with the wire running under the motor and into the terminal. It's, I say 13 and 26. It's $12.99 at Sewing Machines Plus and $25.99 at the other 5 or 6 places, you know, for this replacement light. Okay, ta-da! So I'm going to take that off, and then I'm going to go back to investigating this wire next. I want to inspect the wire now to see if I feel it can be saved, and if this dried out, cracked insulation continues, or if it's more flexible and solid up there. This insulation is very hard and stiff. A little bit there. We got a little more stripped out on that side. Let's see if I can pull it out of the sheath on the other side. Get a little more out here and take a look at it. But I'm not sure about this, because it's, See, that's flexing a little bit there. See, I've got that folded over and it hasn't split open anymore. Let's see how the black does. Now, see, the black is cracking and it still feels very stiff back here. But I've gone back, what, a couple of inches now, and I'm finding cracks in the yellow too. Now this end would have been near the motor. I don't know how much how much heat that motor generates, because I've never had a machine like this before. But so far this does not look like a good thing here. So we'll just go back about halfway and see, and it continues just to crack and crumble as soon as I bend it. And it doesn't take much. You know, you can even have a hairline crack in this inside these sheaths. Now there's a separation of the two sides, so that's probably what's kept the machine working now, is even if there's a minor gap in the insulation that electricity could come out of, it's contained by this inner sheath here. High hopes for this, because, you know, a lot of people don't have access to a lot of things, and they don't solder. They never soldered before, and oh, look at that. Yep. So I was hoping, you know, if just the first 2 or 3 inches that we could use this liquid electrical tape I've used in the past, and just put you put a coat, you let it dry 5 minutes, you put a second coat, you let it dry 4 hours, and you can work with it, and then in 24 hours it's fully cured, and it stays flexible, it's waterproof, it has a high dielectric strength, and then you could just you know, rehook up the wires. You'd have some single black strands going under the terminal, but it wouldn't look bad, and it would be an easy fix that many people could do. But this you just have to do the whole thing, and then you have the possibility that what's inside of the LITE fixture is got some of this going on. And the LITE base here is similar to what was in the Model 99 that I did. If you saw that spotlight video, where one wire comes in a little bit and it's terminated, and the other wire comes in a little bit farther and it's terminated, and then you've got the switch parts and the contacts and stuff. Yeah, this is just not going to work, so we had to look, right? So you do have a chance, depending on the condition of your wiring and what it, you know, if you get back past that first part and it's still supple and there's not any cracks and so forth, you'd probably be okay. So, too bad, so sad, huh? So I've either got to the point now where I need to replace this wire to reuse the rest of the fixture, or just replace the whole fixture. Okay, in this part here we're going to disassemble the LITE and take a look at the inside and see what has to be done, and if I feel that I have the skill to replace the wiring all the way into the springs on these switch parts. I think I will go ahead and remove these 2 screws then, and remove this bracket, so that I'm not constantly working around that little bracket there. And I mentioned before, these are 2 screws through the steel bracket and into the body, Bakelite body. I believe it's Bakelite. And I thought of something else in the section about just replacing or installing the aftermarket light. You know, if you had no light fixture to begin with. But there was a couple comments on people had made who had bought the light. And one of the guys said that he took the bracket off of the new light and he took his old bracket, and the holes didn't line up perfect, but it was kind of like a honeycomb molding, and he could get the old bracket and screws onto the new light. So he took off that big round part of the new light, put the old bracket back on, and he had, I believe he's the one who posted a picture of it, and it looked good. He did a nice job. And you know, so if you're thinking about that and you have the old bracket, not only for this particular version, remember there's 9 versions of this S4 style of light, you might see if you have the old bracket and it may fit on the new aftermarket light. So, put my little parts in there so I don't lose them. What I want to look at now is taking off this small spring clip, I guess I'd call it. And these are pretty tough. This is a pretty thick band of metal. And I have found the spring steel to be pretty stiff. So I didn't film I didn't film myself when I took this apart before, and I'm sorry I didn't, because it was a while ago and I don't remember exactly how I got everything off. So you'll excuse me while I fumble around here and try and discover a way to get it off. And remember, there may be more and much better videos on boy, I'll tell you, that's spinning around there pretty. I don't remember it being that movable. It seems to me I pried it off with the can opener before. It seems like I got one near one edge. There's, you know, there's a split in the spring, right? A gap, and that's how you can flex it over the parts. And it seemed like I got that opener, or maybe a screwdriver, near one end of that. That's dangerous, huh? Pointing a screwdriver at myself to pry it open. I'll go back to trying this here. Oh, okay, that one is off. Thank goodness for that, huh? See if I can just slide that all the way off. I'll show you that. So that's been bent a little bit. I don't remember the gap being that big, and maybe that's why it was loose after I put it back on. The only way I know to get it back on was to stretch it over this little end part here. And it, you know, then the slot for it is recessed. So I stretched it right over, didn't I? I'm sure I can squeeze this back with a plier a little bit, but we may want to replace this too. But that's good, I got that. Now these other rings are much bigger. There's one here and there's one here. And I was kind of surprised to see this one in the middle, but then I realized that these metal brackets here go back to here. So I think that's why there's two rings so that that bracket doesn't swivel around. There's recessed area for the bracket, and then in the bracket and in the molded light there's a recessed area for these two rings. I think what I want to do is go ahead and take the lens out now, and so just like when it's mounted on the machine, what they talk about is putting your, it's on the back of your machine, so you reach over the machine and you hold your hand kind of over the switch, and is that how they did it? Yeah. And then you push with your thumb. You see how that kind of came off there. I'll move that hand. So you're pushing the front part of it here off of the socket part, and then you slide out on these rails, and this is to give you access to change the bulb. So it's a bayonet bulb, so you would push it in against the springs and give it a little twist and pull it out. Now what they said was don't pull this off, but of course I had to, right? I said, why don't they want you to pull it off? Oh, okay, no big deal. So here are the bracket part for that, and you see how they squeezed in, so they're on a tension, and then if you're just changing a light bulb and you want to put it back together, that's how these rails separate. See if I can get it lined up here again, and push them apart, and you can get your front part separated and put back on the rail. And right at the end, see, there's a little part that sticks up that goes into the end of the bracket, and that's what is actually clicking in there. So push with your thumb, okay, slide it out enough, take your light bulb out, put your new, hopefully LED bulb in, and then you slide it back together. Make sure this part lines up good, and then push it back. So for us to work on it and disassemble, we're going to do that, but we're just going to keep going and pull this right off. Okay? I'll put my bulb out of the way for a moment. I'll put the socket part out of the way. I just wanted to show you this because this came in pieces when it was shipped to me, and I think I just slid the glass back. Now that the socket of the light, I think I just slid that right off, or did I just pull it out? There, I just pulled it out. So now there's the inside of the lamp cover, and here is the glass with the heat shield. This is a heat shield to prevent too much heat coming out the back, and it's also a reflective, see, bright steel to reflect the light down through this glass lens that kind of magnifies and focuses it. And these parts come apart also. The reflector shield just slides right on to an edge of the glass. Okay? So if your lens is missing, you buy a new one. That's how you would put it back together, is slide it on to the glass lens, and press it up into, whoops, I didn't get it slid on there very good. I think you could push this probably in here too. Yeah, there, that kind of snaps into place. I told you I didn't remember, and I should have filmed myself. Then I think you can get this light glass. Nope. I think you got to do it like this. I think you got to slide that onto the glass, the little edges of the glass, and now it will snap in to the lamp cover. It's a little recessed area for it also. See the spacing right here to here? There we go. So in the future, the whole thing will slide out, and you can change the bulb and slide it back. Okay? And then it lifts out and slides apart. Ta-da! Okay. It's like a little puzzle. Okay, so now we're down to this part. And the socket is in two parts. There's a top and a bottom. Top with the switch, and bottom with the holes for the mounting bracket. And so when you take these rings off, this is going to kind of come apart. So don't be surprised with that. And I think what I did before was start pulling this, rocking it back and forth, and you see I've got this part right here. I've got the ring out of there, and I'm started to move the bracket forward. Let's try this side too. Just a little bit. What I want to see now is if I can push the spring clip off of the indentation of the bracket and get that back bracket, or even the front, out of the groove that it's in, so I can work with it a little bit more. This is pretty close to the bracket, so let me see if I can do this one maybe. There's a nice edge there. See if I can get the edge and lift it up and out. Nope. This edge. I think what I did before was work one of those springs up onto close to the switch to get it off of the bracket. This time I've kind of pulled it before I got that off. So I've maybe made a problem for myself by doing that, huh? See if I push that back and push that back now, and try that again. I'm trying to look under the camera to do this. It's weird. So I hope you've got this on like 1.5 or double speed. Or you're just skipping ahead. But if you want to try it yourself, I want to make it realistic. I know that there's guys and gals that at this point have said, well, that dummy, why doesn't he just do this? And you already know how to get this off, get these rings off. So if that's the case, how come you haven't already made a video for us, darn it? Oh, I almost had that. Look, I had it up out of the groove a little bit. Of course, I don't want to chew up the light and ruin the fixture either, right? It's just not working the way I had planned before. I remember I had my trusty old red screwdriver I was using before. I remember that. See how that wants to pop up out of the... There. It wants to pop up out of that indentation and right up near the switch. But of course it doesn't want to stay there, right? Okay, let's try this again here. I'll do it this way. There. So this will let me show you those two little grooves where the snap rings go. Here and here. And now you can see with this side out, there's a flat area that bracket sits in. And now that I've removed one of the bracket sides, you can see that this is a little bit looser. So let's see if I can pull the other side off without damaging it. Yeah, that was easier to come off. So here's my two sides of the bracket that hold the lamp cover and the lens and everything. So that came off. So I'm narrowing this down now, right? So I'm hoping that this ring will be easier to get off. There, now I can just pull it off because it's not under as much tension since I took the brackets off. Put those in there so I don't lose them. Now, how about this guy? This has to slide all the way to the front also. But this is loose enough now. I'm just doing it kind of with my thumbnail. Doesn't seem too bad. Get it out of the groove there and just start sliding it up. Of course, as it gets closer to the end, it's going to pop right back down into the other ring groove. There we go. Yep. So now let's see if I can get it out of that one. There. So, now you see the gapping on this? That's how the small one was too. So for sure I bent it getting it back on when I put this back on, because this before was a very small gap like that gap. Okay. And as I described, the two parts came apart. This is the lower part of the socket, and you see it just has where we put the bracket. There's no other parts in there. It's just all one molded piece with some little grooves here to pinch the wire as it goes in. And then this is the part that has all the other parts in it, right here. So let's take a look at that. Okay, let's get a better look at this now. Okay, this would be a good place for you to take a picture if you do get to this point and you're taking stuff apart, you know. Of course, this is the upper half of the socket body with the switch key and the rotating center. And it has the wire lead, of course. And then if we take a look at this, it has a contact spring, and it has the spring contact holder. There. Okay, so one of the contact spring, the spring contact here, and the holder. And this is what's in the socket, you know, that the two pins of the light contact. So you always have a hot wire in here, and when you turn the key and this metal contact that's in there makes contact with the two springs, that activates so that the current can come in through the light bulb and back up, and through the contact, you know. So that's how that works, and that's, I think, the tricky part of replacing the wire lead is you have to unsolder or remove these springs and this one, and then get your new wire and solder it on there. Put it, you know. And you see here, you don't have a lot to play with for the length of the wires here, you know. But in a way, it's fortunate that I still have the wire, so I can kind of, you know, take my new length of wire and compare it to this and cut it where I want. I think I'm going to make it a little bit longer. I think I mentioned that before, but let's just take a look at everything here then that we have. We have the upper and the lower socket bodies. We have the wire lead with the contact and the contact spring holder. Have all that. This they actually called the shade, or lampshade. It goes over the, I'll put it like that, and you have your lamp, okay? And then you have, these are called, I call them just the bracket, but they're, the shade holder is what Singer called them. And they go on, and then you have your bigger snap rings to hold those lampshade holders, and you have your smaller snap ring that holds the back end here and the wire crimped together. And then you have your mounting bracket that mounts the whole thing to your machine, and you've got a couple of these little screws to hold the bracket. So that's the whole thing, and we don't need any of it except the wire lead and the springs, and the spring holder is what we have to work now. So they look tricky, don't they? We'll see what we can do. I guess I have my backup light if I mess it up so bad. Oh, I forgot the they call this the lens or blue glass. It actually has a very light shade of blue on it, and they call it the lens blue glass. I think some were clear. And then this is, they call this the reflector. So I forgot those two parts when I was showing you all the parts there. But let's see if I can get rid of this sheath now. There we go. I can separate these and make them a little easier when I go to damage them. I mean, when I go to repair them. Yeah, and we do sure see that wire's pretty bad. You know, the wire looks aluminum to me. It's just a little surprising, but maybe when this was made there was a copper shortage after one of the world wars there or something. Okay, I guess we're going to work on this one first. Take this off and unsolder that and see what we can do here. So I have to get my soldering iron and all that kind of stuff set up, and then we'll try and unsolder the wire lead from the spring. Okay, I just want to prepare my soldering tip here a little bit. It's in pretty good shape, but I'll just kind of prime it here, get flux on there, and go ahead and see if it's hot enough. Yeah, it's plenty hot. I better turn that temperature down, get some solder on there, and then I'll wipe it off. There. Looks like it's ready to go. And I'll turn this heat down a little bit, so I don't want to hurt anything. Then I just have this up with the solder on the side of the spring there. Probably this crusty old coating I probably could have burned off or cut off, but I'll leave it there for now just to see how it goes. I'm going to try and use a little, what do they call this? Wick, solder wick. Unfortunately, it's a real small size that I got. I had to resolder a little tiny circuit board for part of a computer years ago. You would normally want to use probably a little bit bigger, but look, it's a real small little area of solder here. So maybe it'll be okay, right? So I'll just get some flux here and prime the wick, hoping that'll help draw the solder into it. Don't need a whole lot, but just a little bit. Okay, and if I can put the wick onto the solder and put the iron onto the wick, let's see what happens. Not yet. I think that little wire, as it goes through the spring, there's like a hole in the spring, I think. And when it goes through there, I think then it's bent to the side. And that's what's making the spring hang on there, yeah. So this is going to be hot, so I'll be careful with that. This might still be hot, so I'll be careful with that. And where's my spring? It probably should be cooled down by now. Let's see how clean it got. Looks pretty clean. It's pretty clean on both sides. So, that was easier than I thought, huh? Okay. Put that in a nice safe place. And then let's see, where's my other that I want to remove? Same kind of thing. Going through a hole in the spring, and the wire's just bent a little bit. So let's see if I can do the same kind of a trick, huh? You like my helping hand here? They say with a car, I have a brother who was a real shade tree mechanic. Man, he could fix anything on a car out in the backyard, you know, under the tree. So I'm kind of a junkyard restorer. This works fine to hold the wire, right? I don't need to go spend money on a helping hands thing. Let's move this up a little bit to get some fresh wick. The nice thing about using a wick, if you have it, like it drew the solder from the underside of the hole right up into the wick too, you know. So that's nice. You see that spring came very clean, because once it melted the solder, the wick was able to you know, draw it right up in to the wick, and I didn't have to fool around with flipping anything over and trying to get the iron on the other side or anything like that. Got a little bit too much on my fingers that time. Okay. Let's see how we do with this one here. I don't want to get this iron anywhere near that brown Bakelite disc that's holding the spring, you know. I don't know what that, maybe melt it or damage it or something like that. This one, let's try a little bit more here. I don't think it's transferring the heat as well. I think my, let's try this side. I think my tip's pretty dirty. Oh, there it goes. Almost, huh? Hey, I soldered the wick to the wire. See? I actually think that that's just hanging on by that bent tip of wire here. Let's see. I don't think that it's actually soldered anymore. Yeah. I think there's a little solder on the tip there. So let me try and just cut the tip of that wire off. See if I can pull that off now. There we go. Yeah, this actually got pretty clean too. Just prep those a little bit for my new wire. Easy does it. Whoops. Wow, it's already hot to hold. Whew. Okay.